Galamsey activities in parts of the eastern region halted after government's 3-week ultimatum.
National Health Insurance Authority to pay service providers for May 2016, beginning of next week.
Ghana Television. My name is Micheline Taka.
And my name is Akpene Avo Ajaja. Thank you so much for joining us for the news. In the details, Galamsey activities in the East Achim municipality of the Eastern region has halted following the 3-week ultimatum issued by the government to illegal miners to give up their tools.
Our Eastern regional correspondent visited some of the sites in Chebi and Isikuma and reports that miners have abandoned the sites and taken mining equipment away.
Natural Resources Minister, activities of Galamsey in the Chebi area had heavily polluted the Brim River, which is the only source of water for the people. This compelled the Ghana Water Company Limited to shut down its plant at Chebi since the company could not treat the water for consumption. In a telephone interview, the East Achim municipal manager of the company, Mr. Honori, said the turbidity of the water rose from 4,100 to 4,900. This has, however, reduced to 1,300 after the ultimatum which was issued by government. The company has therefore started production. On a visit to some Galamsey sites in the area, it was observed that the people had adhered to the directive and packed out of the sites. At Esikem, the assemblyman of the area, Mr. Joshua Echiano, said the community, in collaboration with those who had concessions of the area, are working to reclaim the land. So far, about 110 acres of land had been reclaimed and maize, cassava and coconut have been planted. Mr. Echiano appealed to government not to totally halt Galamsey, but strictly enforce the laws on small-scale mining.
Chiefs and people of Kwaman in the Central District of the Ashanti region are alarmed by destruction caused by rains. Soil erosion is extensive and residents are living in fear.
3 paramouncies within the Central District of the Ashanti region, Insuta and Biposo are the other major towns within the district. Kwaman has since time immemorial relied on communal spirit and the philanthropy of its citizens abroad to provide important social amenities for the comfort of the residents. One issue that is of urgent concern to the chiefs and people of the town now is how to deal with the devastation being caused by the rains. Though some residents have planted grass to check the erosion, it has not provided enough grit to stop running waters anytime it rained. GBC24 news team can confirm that if the current state of erosion continues without any pragmatic measures to stop it, the likely catastrophe to the town could be imminent. The concrete foundation of houses have eroded and formed deep gullies, thereby endangering the lives of the people, especially children who fancy playing in the rain. In some instances, the erosion has destroyed building plots, whereas existing buildings could cave in. The chairman of the Kwaman Town Council, Mr. Emmanuel Akosiabuaje, admitted the erosion is causing harm, but some efforts have already been made towards addressing it.
What we have started this year, annual Easter Festival, what funds that we are raising towards the rehabilitation of the drainage system at Kwaman. So we are treating each and every one from Kwaman to come to our aid, to support us to finish that project.
The community organized a Durbar involving all citizens and residents from both home and abroad, purposely to raise funds towards addressing this particular menace. Each citizen was levied to pay a specific amount to fix the problem and avert any calamity.
Government is to support fishermen whose boats were affected by sea surge at the Bosumtrisam Fishing Harbour in Sekondi. The Minister for Fisheries, Mrs. Elizabeth Afolekwe, gave this assurance when she interacted with the fishermen at the harbour to assess the effect of the surge on their activities.
Sea surge is a common occurrence on waterfronts. The extent of its effect, however, depends on the topography of the coastline. In the case of what happened at the Bosomtwisam fishing harbour at 2nd D, the fishermen attributed it to the engineering design. According to them, the breakwater to the harbour is too wide, thus allowing storm and tidal waves to surge to the anchorage of the harbour, where fishing boats berth. In the recent surge, some boats were overturned, while some were knocked against others. It caused extensive damage to the vessels, most of which were rendered unworthy for sea. As operators counted their losses, the Fisheries Minister made a dash to the affected harbour to ascertain the situation. The 2nd D chairman of the Ghana Inshore Fisheries Association, Mr. John Francis Eshan, said, besides the sea surge, they have other challenges militating against their operations.
That's your base now. Even how I want Bebane Abade and Intina boat is a far way for her. I got dodge you on. It is a woman about that boat is in way say. Never the Hano on from one if you there. Up by direct on ye as such no my boat is no. And so don't me who to your boat to be as I say. It's all there, Hano, what you are no more. No, ye Bebano Hono. On your father.
The Minister of Fisheries, Mrs. Elizabeth Afolekwe, said the concerns raised by the fishermen in connection with the engineering of the harbour will be referred to the Transport Ministry for redress. She also indicated that a technical team will assess the extent of damage to the boats, which then will inform remedial measures and compensation.
We listen to the grassroots. Intina anope ewie ya beshiemu wa hasenu. Esan say anything that bothers the grassroots also bothers the government. Say Japanese for a design harbour expansion project. Now on the design no eba. If it doesn't fit our environment, we shouldn't accept it. And say yeah accept design now on the buy no. Say en working my adentina yeah accept it.
Fisheries Minister, accompanied by the Deputy Western Regional Minister, Mrs. Eugenia Kusi, and other officials were taken round the harbour and briefed by one of the affected fishermen, Mr. Andrew Tete. The MP for 2nd D, Mr. Andrew Mesa, urged fishermen to insure their boats.
These are businesses that are associated with risk, but none of them have insurance policies, I believe. So further steps should be taken to ensure that some insurance policies put in place to address some of these things when they come up.
The 23rd Zonta District Conference has opened in Accra. The 3-day event is discussing teenage pregnancy and early marriage of girls. The First Lady, Mrs. Rebecca Ekufu-Addo, challenged women groups to continue to push the women's agenda.
Zonta International is a leading global service organization of professionals working towards the empowerment of women through service and advocacy. The International Service Program helps women in developing countries improve their legal, political, economic, educational and health status through training, education, health, sanitation and agricultural and microcredit assistance. These are factors which empower women to become independent and self-reliant. The 23rd International District 18 Conference is made up of 9 countries in sub-Saharan Africa. Over the next few days, Zonta International will deliberate on issues which impact womanhood, especially the social challenges facing women and girls.
As a district, we are plagued with cultural norms and traditions that hamper our progress in the development of our young girls. Child marriage is becoming endemic. The ascendancy of teenage pregnancy does not augur well for the future of our youth. As agents of change, we need to make our voices heard and influence global opinions and attitudes about women's issues.
The First Lady, Mrs. Rebecca Ekufu-Addo, challenged women groups to find lasting solutions to human trafficking, maternal mortality, and the migration of Ghanaian women to the Middle East as domestic workers.
We should provide our girls with the critical information and resources to make informed decisions about sex. We should tell our girls that having an education is paramount to their future well-being. No child is physically, emotionally, and mentally ready to be a wife. We can only imagine how traumatic this can be for the victims of child marriages. We all need to fight against this. It takes you and I working together with the different stakeholders to stop this practice. No girl deserves this and will be failing future generations if we do not act.
She said the government is committed to creating a brighter future for women. Founded in 1919, Zonta International has awarded scholarships to brilliant but needy girls in Ghana. Its achievements include funding for a project to eradicate female genital mutilation in Burkina Faso and human trafficking in Nepal. For GBC24, Shelley Annan reporting.
Let's move to the Ashanti region now, and the Kumasi Municipal Assembly Circuit Court, presided over by Mrs. Mary Nsechere, has adjourned to the 18th of May the case involving 13 members of the Delta Force Vigilante Group who have been charged for allegedly attacking a public officer and causing unlawful damage.
All the 13 accused persons were in court this morning. The prosecutor of the case, ACP Ochri Dako, who pleaded for adjournment, explained that the Attorney General has called for the docket to allow for further study and advice. Counsel for the accused, Mr. Matthew Appiah, did not object to the plea. Later in an interview with the media, lawyer Appiah expressed optimism that his clients will be exonerated at the end of the trial, since according to him, the police have no concrete evidence that could convict them. According to our reporter, the court premises was fortified with heavy security from the regional police headquarters. A number of MPP members and sympathizers, including the National Youth Organizer, Mr. Sami Uku, were also at the court premises in a show of solidarity with the accused persons. The 13 persons were arrested by the police in Kumasi following an attack by the Delta Force Group at the Ashanti Regional Coordinating Council, where the Regional Security Liaison Officer, Mr. Georgie J., was molested.
The police officer in charge of Nkonya, Chief Inspector Emmanuel Nisenu, has confirmed a shooting incident in which 2 people died with 1 injured. Mr. Nisenu told GBC24 that no arrest has been made yet, but the police are patrolling in town to ensure law and order. Nkonya and Alavanya conflict has been a protracted one. It took a lot of mediation efforts, a permanent security presence, and curfews to stem the tide.
Back here in the national capital, the trade volume between Ghana and France has hit the $2 billion mark in 2016. The latest addition is the return of Air France to Ghana's airspace after over 6 years.
Ghana and France have a relationship one can describe in diplomatic circles as harmonious. Soon after independence in 1957, when Ghana became a sovereign state, Paris reached out to Accra in what became the genesis of a solidarity between forces of different political heritage. The French government has since been supporting and partnering Ghana in many sectors, including health, communication, security, and agriculture. Currently, there are over 90 French projects in Ghana, and the latest to join the fleet is Air France. The Ghana-France political dialogue is aimed at deepening not only the 60-year political relations, but also encourage business, being a new frontier in their relationship. This is the 4th session, and it is aimed at exchanging ideas in a frank and transparent manner. A 10-member French delegation, led by the Deputy Secretary of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and International Development, Mr. Laurent Ghana, met with their Ghanaian counterparts. The Acting Chief Director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Mr. Edwin Ajay, called for a concerted effort in tackling terrorism.
As we are all aware, matters of peace and security have assumed global dimensions, especially in the wake of incidents of terrorism in neighboring countries such as Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, Mali, as well as even in France and other parts of Europe. So these developments serve to underscore how much of a common interest we all have in intensifying our cooperation to jointly fight the global scourge of terrorism arising out of religious fundamentalism.
Mr. Laurent Ghana promised to support Ghana to tackle some teething problems.
Our cooperation with Ghana in the area of security, with focus on marine security in the Gulf of Guinea and on the fight against terrorism, is exemplary. In recent years, several substantial strides have been made in this sector. On the economic dimension, as you know, France is actively supporting Ghana's efforts on the path to economy recovery and approves of the approach taken by the new government towards private sector development and the attraction of foreign investment. French companies are more and more interested in the Ghanaian market.
The Ghana-France political dialogue will be an annual event between the foreign ministries of the two countries.
A project creating a tech-driven social accountability for results is to train civil society on how to apply digital tools to track government activities. It will put public office holders on their toes to be more accountable.
Social accountability focuses on citizens' direct and indirect participation in the national dialogue on development. There are a number of mechanisms by which citizens can make contributions towards an efficient public service delivery. Critical to this are a discerning public and governments which are responsive to the issues. As social policy analyst, Dr. Esther Ofeya-Boaji said, social accountability influences national development.
If things are being done in the people's name, with resources that are public resources, the people who have sent or in whose name these things are being done must be able to have an accounting for the ways in which resources are being used. So social accountability is very important. Citizens must be up and asking questions. Like somebody said, it's not enough to have bad treatment before you ask what's going on, what's wrong. You must be able to understand what is going to be done, how it's going to be done, and whether it's acceptable to you.
The Director of Policy Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation at the Ministry of Gender, Children and Social Protection, Mauto Ablo, gave an assessment of the social protection landscape in Ghana and how important it is to introduce innovative digital technology to augment their work.
We have developed a case management system. We are trying to put in place a single window where citizens, beneficiaries, or other stakeholders can give us information as to some challenges or what things they think are not being done well. And then when we receive that, then we will promptly respond to address the issues or challenges that the general public or the beneficiaries or the stakeholders may be facing.
We're using technology tools because we want to actually bridge the gap easily between the duty bearer and citizens. So I don't have to go and queue at the duty bearer's office to be able to tell them what I have found or what my issues are, what my recommendations are, what my problems are. The digital tools also provide anonymity. So if I have something that I need to report, you know, our typical culture is that we feel that when we're reporting somebody, we are doing wrong, so we don't want to be seen. But then digital tools, sending SMS, sending WhatsApp, actually, will, you know, in the comfort of your home, eliminates a challenge. So citizens can easily participate in the governance process.
10 Plus Bytes is currently implementing the tech-driven social accountability for results project in 2 selected districts, Elembele and Ashaman. It will equip citizens with the usable information, methods, online and mobile-based platform to enable them to monitor selected social intervention policies such as the labor-intensive public works, the livelihood empowerment against poverty, LEAP, and the Ghana School Feeding Program. The project is funded by the Open Society Initiative for West Africa, USIWA, and expected to run for 24 months. Rebecca Iwa for GBC24, Accra.
It's news are live on GBC24 and Ghana Television. We go for a quick break. We'll be back shortly with the business segment. Hello.
Hello, good evening and welcome. Time now for some business updates brought to you by NIB and Ernest Chemist. I'm Dorothy Ajmine. The Ministry of Finance has described as unfortunate the statement issued by the minority in Parliament which seeks to cast negative aspersions on a domestic bond issued on March 30, 2017. The statement from the Finance Ministry said the $2.25 billion bond was not shrouded in secrecy as alleged by the minority, but was announced by the book runners including Barclays, Stanbic and SAS, which have been at the forefront of government bonds since 2015. The Finance Ministry considers the statement as unfortunate, especially as it was fronted by Kazel Atuforsen, a former Deputy Finance Minister who is well versed on the workings and processes for the issue of domestic bonds and as such should not be making such allegations. A statement issued by the Finance Minister has surmised that these allegations are maliciously designed to malign the positive news which this landmark transaction has garnered both locally and internationally. The Finance Ministry debunked the assertion that the issuance of the bond was shrouded in secrecy as alleged by the minority. It said the book runners Barclays, Stanbic and SAS, who have been mandated since 2015 on regular basis as per the debt issuance calendar which the Ministry of Finance puts out every quarter. Also, the book runners announce and publish every impending bond issue to the market the week of issue and provide price guidance to the market, and this latest issue was no different. The latest bond was announced by the book runners on March 30, 2017 via emails and was also published on the Ministry of Finance and Bank of Ghana websites with settlements on April 3, 2017. According to the Finance Ministry, Franklin Templeton was not the only participant and there were 25 other buyers, including foreign entities, on the issue of parliamentary approval. Like all other domestic bonds issued under this bond program since 2015, the Finance Ministry said the March 30 bond did not need any parliamentary approval because approval was covered by the initial application. The World Bank has projected a recovery and growth rate of 2.6% in Africa for this year. The World Bank biannual analysis suggests that sub-Saharan Africa has made economic rebound this year after the figures in 2016 pointed at the worst decline in more than 2 decades. Aggregate growth is projected to be 3.2% in 2018 and 3.5% in 2019. World Bank economists say the recovery rate for the Africa region to rebound remains weak, with growth expected to rise only slightly above population growth, a pace that hampers efforts to boost employment and economic difficulties. The continent's largest economies, Nigeria, South Africa and Angola, are seeing a rebound from the sharp slowdown in 2016, but World Bank say the recovery has been slow due to insufficient adjustment to low commodity prices and policy uncertainty. In its latest report, 7 countries continue to exhibit economic resilience, supported by domestic demand, posting annual growth rates above 5.4% in 2015 to 2017. These countries are Cote d'Ivoire, Ethiopia, Kenya, Mali, Rwanda, Senegal and Tanzania. All these 7 countries house nearly 27% of the region's population and account for 13% of the total GDP. The World Bank's lead economist, Madame Poonam Chauhan Poli, said the environment of weak economic growth comes at a time when the continent is in dire need of necessary reforms to boost investment and tackle poverty.
One of the things moving forward as African countries try to regain the momentum on growth is to see an improvement in investment.
As countries move towards physical adjustment, there is the need to protect the right conditions for investments so that sub-Saharan African countries can achieve a more robust recovery. The World Bank chief economist for the Africa region, Mr. Albert Ziofak, said there is the need to implement reforms that increase the productivity of African workers and create jobs.
It is also important to strengthen reforms to increase and to crowd in private investment. Private sector growth is what will allow Africa to come back to pre-crisis levels growth. We need to also develop local financial markets. We need to deepen this market to ensure we can mobilize domestically enough resource to finance our development.
Africa's infrastructural gap is described as huge. Only 35% of Africans have access to electricity, which is the lowest of all. Internet connectivity has increased from 1.3 to 16.7 as at 2015. The Bretton Woods institution urged African governments to slow down borrowing. Public-private partnerships should be encouraged by allowing citizens to get involved in government projects. A lead economist, Mr. Caesar Calderon, says this can help tackle corruption in the government sector, which is widespread in procurement issues.
There's a lot that has to be done in terms of governance at the project level. If you think about improvements that African countries have to do in terms of project preparation, procurement, and contract management. In the long term, and this is a point that Albert was correctly making, investments to improve the productivity of the private sector.
Overall, the report calls for the implementation of reforms to improve institutions that foster private sector growth, develop local capital markets, improve infrastructure, and strengthen domestic resource mobilization.
Moving on, Ghana has successfully gone through the second validation standards of the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. This means Ghana has been validated as one of the countries that implements transparency and accountability in the extraction of its natural resources for the benefit of her people.
A country's natural resources such as oil, gas, metals and minerals belong to its citizens. Extraction of these resources can lead to economic growth and social development. However, poor natural resource governance has often led to corruption and conflict. More openness and public scrutiny of how wealth from a country's extractive sector is used and managed is necessary to ensure that natural resources benefit all. To cure this, the Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, EITI, a global standard, has been put in place to promote transparent and accountable management of natural resources. Every 3 years, countries endowed with natural resources must submit itself to the EITI to be validated as a country adhering to the standards of the EITI. This is the second time Ghana has gone through the validation process and has been validated after the 2013 process. The implication is that the country has attained an EITI compliant status, thus making her better placed than her peers. The report, however, expressed concern about certain measures Ghana needs to take, such as license register, state participation, production and export data, and comprehensiveness. But the senior stool lands officer, Dr. Gad Asowe Akwensiri, said, having a legal framework to guide the transparency and accountability will be key going forward.
We are in the process of putting in place a bill that should regulate the EITI. Because as it stands now, it's a voluntary initiative, so a company can decide not to even do EITI. But we have made them understand that it is in their own interest to be able to tell the whole world that you do EITI, that you are transparent.
The co-chair of the Multi-Stakeholder Steering Committee of G8EITI, Dr. Steve Mantiao, said more work needs to be done to enable the country meet the standards in 2019.
Particular area of concern, as highlighted in the report, has to do with
GMPC and its accountability mechanisms, particularly how sometimes it advances some of its funds to finance state projects, as happened with the Western Corridor roads. Again, how it advanced some money to the Ministry of Finance without proper documentation. So these are things that have come to our attention. We are in discussion with GMPC, and I think we all agree that we need to shy away from the practice.
Ghana is expected to begin pre-validation process in March 2018, with a final report on the country's transparency and accountability expected to be published in 2019.
You're watching News Hour live on GBC24 and GTV, and this is the business segment. On the Bank market, the pound is selling at 5 cedis 34 pesos, the US dollar at 4 cedis 17 pesos, and the euro is also trading at 4 cedis 46 pesos. On the commodities market, light crude is trading at $50.92 per barrel and cocoa at $1,840 per ton. Gold is also going for $1,290.20 an ounce. It's for the business segments brought to you by NIB and Ernest Chemist. We have more news coming up after this break. Please do stay.
Healthcare indicators such as maternal and child health, communicable and non-communicable diseases, as well as mental health, funding, leadership, and governance, among others. The Chief Director of the Ministry of Health, Dr. Afisa Zakaria, said the sector made some gains in the year under review, tackling issues of family planning, immunization, HIV and AIDS infections, and malaria. The country representative of UNICEF, Madame Susan Namundo Ngungi, noted the need for the country to re-strategize and finance the health sector as it grapples with donor fatigue.
It is important that the sector is able to fully account for every CD spent in terms of results achieved for Ghanaians. And with your accounting background, Honorable Minister, that is one of, and that also of one of your Honorable Deputies, it seems to be a clear signal from His Excellency the President that bringing accountability to the health sector is important. Financial accountability is important. The second perspective from which we see accountability impacting positively within the health sector relates to the quality of care that Ghanaians receive when they visit the healthcare facilities.
A member of the Parliamentary Select Committee on Health, Mr. William Sabi, was unhappy about the inadequate budgetary allocation for the sector, which sometimes impede work. A representative of the Asante-Hene, Bafo Ose Branto chairman, urged government to complete all projects initiated by the previous administration, with emphasis on a 30-year-old abandoned maternity block,
at the Konfanochi Teaching Hospital in Kumasi. The Health Minister, Mr. Kweku Agyemang-Manu, disclosed that government will soon initiate a policy for the sustainability of the National Health Insurance Scheme.
We have started discussions on the need to restructure and reform the scheme to ensure that the scheme is sustained. Let me assure you that government is listening carefully to the views that are coming up. On the appropriate time, we will respond constructively. Let me take this opportunity to announce that amounts owed to the National Health Insurance Authority to providers, especially Ghana Health Service and CHAG, and the private sector, in respect of May 2016, will be settled by close of this week or early next week.
Mr. Agyemang-Manu further directed all departments and agencies under his ministry to comply with the new policy of IGF capping to ensure accountability and transparency.
Also in health, a meningitis outbreak in Nigeria has killed 745 people. 50% of the figure happened within 1 week. Nigeria's Center for Disease Control has called for an all-hands-on-deck effort to stamp out the disease.
Over 8,000 suspected cases of the disease have been reported across the country over the past 5 months, some 93% of which occurred in 5 northern states. The new death toll was a rise of 52% on last week's total of 189. The mouse outbreak has mostly affected children, prompting a large-scale vaccination program. Meningitis is caused by different types of bacteria, 6 of which can cause epidemics. The flare-up cerebrospinal meningitis CSM serotype C cases concentrated in northern Nigeria, where authorities have convened a meeting of governors and traditional leaders from all states in the region. They reaffirmed their commitment to immediate and concrete actions towards halting the outbreak.
Hello, good evening. Let's talk sports. I'm Theophilus Sampa. We go straight to the Garden City Kumasi, where the Minister for Youth and Sports, Mr. Isaac Esiama, has directed the National Sports Authority to stop renting the Babara Sports Stadium pitch for non-sporting activities. Thus, the Minister believes can stem further deterioration of the pitch and other facilities at the stadium. This is the first working visit of the Youth and Sports Minister, Mr. Isaac Esiama, to the stadium since assuming duty less than 3 months ago. The purpose is to enable him acquaint himself with conditions at the stadium and how to adequately inform the government on the extent of maintenance works needed to be done. Accompanied by officials of the National Sports Authority, the minister inspected the VIP, VVIP and popular stands, presidential lounge, washrooms, dressing rooms, tartan tracks, hockey and soccer pitches. Constructed in the 1960s, the stadium, Ghana's biggest sporting facility, has not seen any major rehabilitation works in the last decade after the edifice was upgraded as one of the venues to host the Africa Cup of Nations AFCON in 2008. Currently, more than 8,000 of the seats, particularly in the popular stands at the Asukwa end of the pitch, have been destroyed. In recent times, officials of the National Sports Authority have been renting the facility for entertainment and church-related activities. Thus, the minister raised the red flag.
We are going to issue instructions. And never should any event take place on the pitch itself.
No, for here,
you have compound over there. Sorry.
Sometimes when they want the seats.
Your stadium, that when they come, the damage caused to the facilities here, and the return that you get.
Yeah, that one we are in control of that.
Cost-benefit analysis.
Yes.
The Regional Sports Development Officer, Mr. Ewuntuma Idrisu, complained of inadequate funds to maintain the facility.
We are going to use to pay this month's light bill.
Are you happy about the state of this sports stadium?
We are not happy, like I said. For 10 years, no major rehabilitation has been done here.
10 years, you have been renting this facility out to people for concerts and other programs. That's why I asked you whether you've done value for money analysis of this usage of the concerts and all those events.
Sometimes the concerts even give us money more than football.
there are certain times we play a match here, and the percentage that is left at the Baba Yara here is not even enough to do cleaning. You see, so for getting a concert, it's like hitting the jackpot.
Why do you jump into football?
No. It's a problem for us.
So you have a facility that you rent it out to so many events. So if you know football is not getting you the kind of return, why don't you talk to them?
Oh no, the Director General is taking it up. We are advocating for an increase in the percentage that is left here. That is woefully inadequate for us.
Mr. Esiama revealed that a structural integrity audit will soon be carried out on the stadium before actual rehabilitation work starts in June this year. The sports minister assured that government will continue with the construction of the new Edubiase Sports Stadium and disclosed that community parks will be built in districts across the country to promote sports. Here in Accra, the 2016-2017 National Women's Football League will kick off on April 29 this year. The competition, which is in its 5th year, will have 16 clubs participating in the zonal format, the Northern and Southern. This is the new trophy to be competed for when the much-awaited National Women's Football League kicks off on Saturday, April 29 at the respective league centers across the country. 16 Premiership clubs will be participating, launching the competition on Wednesday, April 19th at the GFA Secretariat in Accra. The chairperson of the National Women's League Board, Madam Liniade, promised an exciting season.
Before we kickstart season 5, the FA approved for us to have a Super Cup, which is coming off on Saturday, 22nd of April 2017 at the Baba Yara Stadium. And the teams are Agrimdakwa versus Police Ladies. Let me say that the FA will do all it can in its powers to make sure we sustain women's football. And that is why, in agreeing with Star Times to get the Premier League TV rights, we also included the Women's League to 29 is going to start the league.
Just like last season, the winner of the competition will receive 10,000 Ghana cedis, whilst the runner-up takes home 5,000 Ghana cedis. Let's quickly go to the USA for an update in the ongoing NBA championship, where the Golden State Warriors, the Houston Rockets, and the Washington Wizards were in action last night in Game 2 of the first round of the NBA playoffs. They all took commanding 2-0 leads in their best of 7 series. That's all for sports.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to the art segment. This segment is brought to you by Cowbell. My name is Valerie Danso. Gospel and inspirational artist OJ says, as much as music should entertain people, it also has to make them reflect on their lives. He also shared his views on the appearance of some gospel artists. OJ was a guest on our showbiz segment earlier.
Anytime you want to get someone's attention, it is not in the midst of noise. You reflect when things are quiet. You reflect in our solitude. So even if you take any of my CDs, you see that I have a lot of hot songs on the album. But I started with the hot songs to engage you, to get your attention. When I get you, then I drop it to the low tempo and the mid tempo kind of songs, because that is where you can settle and listen to the wisdom I want to impact into your life. So I believe that music must carry substance. You should not just put words on melody. The melody becomes a vehicle, but the lyrics becomes the content. It becomes the engine for the car. So if you don't have content, you may have the music all right, but it will not last long. For the men, I don't have any problem or a challenge. Nobody has made me a judge over any other person. At the end of the day, God is the best judge. But God looks into the inward of a man. God is a God of an inward person. Man look at the outward. But since man continues to remain man, man will look at the outward and judge you. So the Bible says, let your light shine before all men, so that they may see and give glory to your Father in heaven. You shouldn't let men look into your heart before they see who you are. Let your appearance say something about you. So when people are saying that the way you dress does not conform to the patterns of God, then sit down, reflect upon it, and find a way that you can drop some of the prejudices people have concerning you. So when people are talking about your dressing, and there is something that you need to do about it, so that your God will be attractive enough for them to follow you. Yes.
Okay. Next up are some news tidbits.
Setutu has commended multiple award-winning hip life artist Ochiame Kwame for his tremendous efforts towards the fight against hepatitis B over the past 8 years. The overlord of Ashanti encouraged the 41-year-old musician to continue with his humanitarian project to help save more lives. The Asantehene made these remarks when Ochiame Kwame and his management paid a visit to the Menchia Palace. A musician nicknamed Daddy Lumba Jr. strongly believes that veteran high life musician Daddy Lumba is his father, according to Kwame Anoche, who bears a striking resemblance with the veteran high life sensation. It couldn't be mere coincidence that he resembles and behaves like Daddy Lumba. The 32-year-old musician therefore wants a DNA test to ascertain if Daddy Lumba is his father. Golden Movie Awards Africa opens entries for its 2017 edition. Golden Movie Awards gives the opportunity to African filmmakers around the world to receive praise, recognition, and be awarded for their efforts at telling the African story both to Africans and the rest of the world during the period under review.
This segment is brought to you by Kanketsi Kabel. We'll take the weather report now.
The Winko Weather Report, brought to you by Adrianehene with technical support from the Ghana Meteorological Agency.
Lovely evening to you. Welcome to the weather segment of the news brought to you by Adrianehene. My name is now Fedia Jabo. Tonight through to tomorrow morning, some parts of the country would experience some thunderstorm activities. Places like Sogakope, Ho, Bator, Aplau, and their environs coming down to Akuse, Begro, Donkokrom, and their environs as well. Then we come down to Kumasi, Mampong, and their surrounding areas would experience some thunderstorm activities. Talking about the weather updates tonight through to tomorrow morning, we're expecting some scattered rains for those along the coastal part of the country. Minimum temperatures 26 degrees Celsius would be recorded for the northern sectors and those along the coastal belt as well. For the middle sectors, temperature would be 25 degrees Celsius. Humidity would be high for those by the forest and the coastal belt, low and normal for the transitional part and the northern sectors. In the afternoon, we're expecting some partly cloudy weather with a chance of sunshine. Maximum temperatures 42 degrees Celsius will be recorded for the northern sectors, 36, 35 degrees Celsius for the middle belt, and 33 degrees Celsius recording along the coastal stretch of the country. For the next 24 hours, that's how we're expecting your localities to look like. Next on your screen is the forecast for the next 48 hours. Please stay. That's it for the weather updates. Good evening. See you tomorrow.
That's all in this package. News tonight is at 10.